In this video, we're going to use a pictogram to work out the value that has the highest or the lowest frequency. Now, there's a few terms I use there. Firstly, what's meant by a pictogram? Well, a pictogram is just a visual way of representing how many of each value we have. So this question, for example, is talking about the number of texts that 26 people sent yesterday. And so we've got some people who sent 5 texts, and what these squares are showing is like how many students sent 5 texts. The word frequency, by the way, that's just a posh word for saying how many. So it's telling us how many people sent 5 texts, 6 texts, 7 texts, 8 texts, etc. And what this key is at the bottom is just telling us what each square in the diagram is worth. So it's saying each square is worth 2 peoples. Now, the question here is finding the most common number of texts. It doesn't ask us to say how many people sent that number of texts. It just wants to know the most common number of texts. So these are the number of texts, and we want to know what one was the most common. Well, the most common one will be the one with the most number of pupils sending that number of texts. And that's what the frequency is. So we just need to find the number of texts which has the highest frequency. Now, if we look at this diagram, we can see that this row here has the most number of squares. And because these squares represents the frequency, this row here has the highest frequency. It's the most common value. Now, what's the number of texts corresponding to these people? Well, it's 7 texts. So that's the answer. The most common number of texts is 7. And if the question also asks us to find the number of people that sent that number of texts, then we can use this key here, because each square is worth 2. So we just draw it in the diagram. This square is worth 2 people. Then we've got another 2 people, another 2 people, another 2 people. And then because we have half the square at the end, that represents half of 2 people, which is 1 person. So we have another 1 text. And if we add those numbers together, that gives us 9. So the frequency would be 9. But the question is just asking what the number of texts that were sent. There were 7 texts sent, that was the most common, and 9 people sent that number of texts.